morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Pottstown. My name is Linda, and I will be leading the services today. I'd like to welcome everyone today, but I'd like to extend a special welcome to guests that we have today. Thank you for taking a chance and walking through our doors. In Unitarian Universalism, you can bring your whole self, your full identity, your questioning mind, your expansive heart. Together, we create a force more powerful than one person or one belief system. Unitarian Universalists do not have to let go of personal experiences, practices, or beliefs to be part of this community. We join together on a journey that honors all individual backgrounds and experiences. We have no shared creed. Our beliefs are diverse and inclusive. We can believe in more than one thing. We think for ourselves. What unites us is our broad and inclusive outlook, our shared values, and our shared experience. So welcome to all. You are an important member of defining our uniqueness within the community. Are there any announcements?
That is it in here right now. And he is going to do the first Saturday of December. His next cooking demo, which there will be more information forthcoming. December the 7th, I think from 10 to 2. It'll be all things chocolate cake. It includes his internationally known devil's food cake, chocolate fort, and something else that I don't remember because it's not always really good about telling me. So I think it's probably still $25. I think the sign up will go up at some point in time when Miranda, I think are you the one that put on? I'm not. Okay. It's the one who puts in the thing with the link where you click in and sign up to know in advance. I'm assuming it's going to be around limit of 18 people. So Saturday, December the 7th from 10 to 2, all things chocolate cake. It's just in time for the holidays. I have nothing to say.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Diane. We had a lovely ritual last night. We will be doing on the 7th in the evening. So come enjoy chocolate cake and then stick around for our Yule ritual, which is a audience with the Star Goddess. That's like at 6 here in the sanctuary on December the 7th. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Valerie. I am super excited to announce that the craft raffle table is finally up. I've gotten so many beautiful donations. I think I might even have a couple more coming next week. The downside of that is that I was completely unprepared for how many gorgeous things I got. And so I don't actually have enough jars and labels to label everything and put out a jar for everything. But I will take care of that by next week. In the meantime, I am now selling the raffle tickets. Woo! The raffle tickets will be 5 for 10 or 12 for 20. Pretty sure I said that right, yes. So come find me after the service. I am very excited. He has been gracious enough to let me participate in the organization of the third Sunday potluck, which is why I'm up here on the first Sunday because I want to get started early. But I realized that we typically rotate the list on the second Sunday, but if you're not here on the second Sunday, then you didn't have an opportunity to sign up for something for that. So I will circulate the list today, just in case. Again, if you're not ready to sign up, that is also fine, but if you are, please sign up. And we're also looking into an electronic version that may be circulated via email shortly. So don't be surprised if you see an email from Sarah Winning. I promise I won't ask you for your password or your bank account number or anything. It's truly just for potluck sign up. But again, we will start potluck sign up today. We will also circulate it next week in preparation for third Sunday potluck this month. And I also believe it's a special potluck. Miranda let me know it's where we welcome new members who have joined in the past year, 6 months, a year. So hopefully it'll be a fun time to welcome our family as well as some other families of members. So thank you. Thank you.
Was that a volunteer or voluntold?
It was, actually, I volunteered myself at K, so.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that. It's greatly appreciated. So now I will, any volunteers to light our chalice? Come on up. Oh, well. Both go. Make it out good. And apropos, it's adapting to change, right? We usually think of one, now we have two. And as they light the flame, again, with our topic being about transformation, while a fire and a flame is one thing, it's constantly changing. It looks different. It looks different by what it's burning, and it adapts to whatever it is around it. So, thank you. So as we settle ourselves in, let us just breathe deeply, turn off our electronics, and listen to the chimes. So the topic, as you saw, is this is the second in a series for us to be talking about the new shared values and what it means to be you. Today's is transformation, and while again, this is going to be very Socratic, we're going to be talking to each other, we're going to learn from each other. I thought it was important to ground us in some things. So I'm not sure, has anybody ever heard of Elizabeth Lesser or the Omega Institute up in Rhinebeck, New York? You have. She is, that is an amazing place. If you ever get a chance to go away for some retreat, or they've got lectures and all this sort of stuff. She wrote a book called Broken Open. So my opening words are from her book, Broken Open, How Difficult Times Can Help Us Grow. How strange that the nature of life is change, yet the nature of human beings is to resist change. And how ironic that the difficult times we fear might ruin us are the very ones that can break us open and help us blossom into who we were meant to be. So now I'm going to ask that everybody can stay at their seats, but our choir will lead us in singing Spirit of Life, number 123. And now we will have a story for all ages, and I want to thank Emily for volunteering to read this story for me. And again, it is about dealing with change. So anybody young in spirit, body, mind, soul is welcome to come up.
Good morning, everybody. This is a book called Goodbye, Gilmore by Victor Trussell. And Victor Trussell is actually a Philadelphia local. He's not a Philadelphian native, he's actually from Chicago, but he's a Philadelphia local because he lives here now. That's right. All right. Gilroy Goodhart loved spending time with his big brother Gibson. They had always been a great team. With Gibson by his side, every day was a big adventure. There was so much to explore. Anybody have a birthday sibling that they really like to explore with? Oh. Together, they created the biggest monstrosity the world had ever seen. The Frankenstein meaty sandwich delight. It's alive! Well, it's not alive, we're gonna eat it. Basketball nights were a family tradition. Sometimes even Grandma joined in the fun. Grandma Goodhart scores again. She's better at basketball than me. Gilroy looked up to his brother. Gibson had cool stuff, cooler stories, and the coolest friends. I'll always be with you, little bro, Gibson often said. But one particularly rainy morning, everything changed. Your brother is going away to college, Grandma told Gilroy. Gilroy didn't know where college was, but Grandma said it was far away. Far away from big adventures? Far away from Frankensteins? Far away from basketball games? Far away from Gilroy? Say goodbye to your brother, Grandma said. Bye, whispered Gilroy. Oh, it's not goodbye forever, Gibson told him. It's just goodbye for now. Gibson handed Gilroy a small golden book. Whenever you miss me, I'll be right here. Gilroy held the book close to his heart. Maybe goodbye for now wouldn't be so bad. But as the days passed, goodbye for now began to feel like goodbye forever. There were reminders of Gibson everywhere. Gibson's trophies were still on the shelf in the living room. Gibson's smelly pair of sneakers were still over by the door. Do you know anyone who leaves smelly sneakers by the door? Okay. And Gibson's toothbrush was still in the bathroom. Gilroy was lonely. When was Gibson coming back? At home, there were hardly any more adventures. Grandma snoozed in front of the TV. Frankensteins were impossible to make without Gibson, so Gilroy made normal sandwiches with Aaliyah instead. The result? Peanut butter in Aaliyah's hair. Please help me, Gilroy, she said. Oh, peanut butter in the hair is not a good thing. And basketball nights? Forget it. Gilroy loved shooting hoops with the twins, Warner and Turner, but it just wasn't the same. They were bickering again. Monterey's eye taller, said Warner. That's not what Dad said, Turner wailed. You know any siblings that bicker? But then Gilroy remembered the book. The what? The twins asked. The moment had come. Gilroy scrambled to retrieve the golden book from under his bed. Ooh, what do you think's in the book? Any guesses? Let's see. When he threw open the cover, he saw big adventures, Frankenstein's basketball night, and much more. All their big adventures were there. Still, Gilroy felt disappointed. He enjoyed the memories, but it didn't bring Gibson home. There was no magic. A page fell to the floor as Gilroy put the golden book away. Oh, Grandma exclaimed. Looks like your brother left a note. What does it say? Asked Gilroy. Grandma read the note. Dear little brother, I hope that you enjoy looking at all these cool times. I can't wait to add new memories to our book. Things probably look a little different right now, but I promise everything will be okay. Change is tough, but we're even tougher. Take care of Grandma, and I'll see you on Thanksgiving. P.S. I told you there was no getting rid of me. Yes. Gilroy smiled. There was magic after all. From that day on, Gilroy knew that change was okay. And even when his brother was far away, Gilroy wasn't alone. Besides, there were so many more memories to be made. That's the end. Thank you guys for listening.
And thank you, Emily, for volunteering for doing that. She did a much better job than I ever would. Change is tough, and we're even tougher. That's what I love about that. So now is the time for our offertory. I need somebody to volunteer. Pass it and I'll offer these words by Kristen Collins. We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. So. Thank you all. Your generosity is greatly appreciated. So now let's talk about our shared value. This is the second in our series on what it means to be a member of the Unitarian Universalist faith. As I stated last month, I am not the authority on any of these, and I'm certainly not the authority on transformation. In fact, I'm just another bozo on the bus trying to figure out how to get by in this crazy world. So this is why we are going to learn from each other. I have a few thoughts I want to share to get the juices flowing in our brain and hopefully stimulate some ideas. But really, we're going to learn from each other. What does transformation mean to you? What does the new value mean? We have it up there. And hopefully we'll have a really good discussion and there will be some takeaways. So with that, let's get started. And again, from Elizabeth Lesser, as she talks about transformation, she says, the transformation journey is a voyage with 100 different names. The Odyssey, the Grail Quest, the death and rebirth process, the dark night of the soul, the hero's journey, etc. All these names describe the process of surrendering to a time of great difficulty, allowing the pain to break us open, and then being reborn stronger, wiser, and kinder. She says, I have my own name for the quest. I call it the Phoenix process, in honor of the mythic bird with the golden plumage whose story has been told throughout the ages. The Egyptians called the bird the phoenix and believed that every 500 years he renewed his quest for his true self, knowing that a new way could be found only with the death of his worn-out habits, defenses, and beliefs. The phoenix built a pyre, sat in the flames, and burned to death. Then he rose from the ashes as a new being, a fusion of who he had been before and who he had become. You and I are the phoenix. We can reproduce ourselves from the shattered pieces of a difficult time. Our lives ask us to die and to be reborn every time we confront change. Change with ourselves and change with the world. And the one thing that, as I was thinking the order of why we were doing this, I thought transformation would be perfect because based on the outcomes of events leading up to Tuesday, our world will change, regardless of the winner, right? There will be change coming. And there may be change that you embrace. There may be change that you do not embrace. But the point is, it will change. And then the task is, how are we going to transform? How are we going to adapt to that change? So that's really sort of what I would like to see the discussion to be. What does it mean to adapt to something? What happens if we don't adapt to the circumstances? What gets in the way? Any thoughts on that value? And again, this is where I shut up and we all learn from each other. So, anyone?
You're asking the question, what does it mean if we don't adapt?
It can be any of that. It's like, so what does it mean to adapt? What happens if we don't adapt? I mean, I can ask each question if you prefer I do it that way. I just, you're all kind of free thinkers. I just wanted to leave it open. Okay. Yeah.
For me, it's more about, am I ready to change and how do I know I'm ready for a change? And for me, it's when the practices that I practice no longer work for me. It's time.
So how do you know that?
It's a feeling. Sort of like, geez, I've been doing this way for 60 years. It's no longer working. Let's try something else.
Right. So it's more that internal,
it's an internal
stress.
Yeah, it's like I'm under stress, and why? Because I've been doing it this way. Of course, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So when it's not working, or sometimes.
Right. Why? I'm sorry, Miranda.
I'm kind of thinking that thinking about next Tuesday and what the results might be, and hoping that in any case, I could, in either case, that I could maintain that value system so that no matter what happens, would my life be in danger or would life be much more difficult? Given particular scenario, would I still be useful, or would I be able to help people, or and still live a full life? And what is striking to me is that we have been so fortunate to live in a country where we could do these things comfortably. But I've been reading some TikTok on, and in so many parts of the world, life is already tough. And there's a war in everybody's backyard in some countries. And some people don't have their backyards anymore. And throughout history, people have been trying to live their principles or their ideals. And so I just wonder how good I would be if things should change. Whether I can still be worth something to other people, really worthwhile. And so I'm playing with it and not saying it will, but that's what I think about when I think about changes in the near future, perhaps. will I be able to do? And how so many people in the history of the world never had it so good, but still tried to live by their principles. I think change and transformation is a very personal thing, regardless of what's going on in the world that I can or cannot control at all. I mean, I can do what I can. I can use my voice. I can cast the vote, but I have no actual control over what happens after that. So I try to focus change and transformation. I try to focus it on who I am. Our bodies are constantly changing. We don't get to stop that. We have no choice but to adapt. So, you know, I'm no longer 16 years old. Pretending that I am would be useless and pointless. That means that I'm much happier than I was at various stages of my life. And I think that's the key is seek transformation that makes you happy. Seek transformation, seek to use it to have a happier life, to be happier people. If something is making you miserable, making you unhappy, walk away from it, discard it, change what you're doing, because being miserable is not the point. Being happy is the point. So making the changes that are necessary and just, you know, taking it, not fighting change, because we don't get to. We can't control what happens in the world. We can't control what happens on Tuesday. We can't control what happens in our bodies as we age from year to year. So don't fight that and just try to make the decisions that I can to be happier and to make the people around me happier, if that makes any sense at all. So those are my thoughts on it.
So why don't we change? If we all know that change is good, I'm sorry, Alan. And I'm sorry, I jumped in your name.
I don't think I need a microphone.
Okay.
That's good, by the way. So I noticed, and thank you so much for this topic. We've come a couple weeks now and it's actually a little spooky how like on time, everything's been. But so transformation for me is like a very internal thing. I love the Phoenix analogy. I was like, yes. And I've noticed recently that I have a lot of self-limiting beliefs that I think at one point really served me well. It was important to stay small. It was important to maybe go along with things that I didn't totally agree with, but it felt better not to rock the boat. And that isn't serving me very well anymore. It's causing a lot of internal conflict with myself. So that to me, like, there's that point internally where it's just like rock rubbing up against rock and it feels so uncomfortable. And that signals to me, like, okay, this is something that needs to be kind of rooted out and transformed into something different. And it's not necessarily like a defect, like wanting to make people around you happy isn't like an inherently terrible thing. It's kind of wonderful, but at the expense of my own sanity, it's not so great. So taking a look at the things that make up who I am and my belief system and really rooting out the things that aren't serving me so that I can serve others in the way that I would like to has been like a very big thing. It's been my like theme this year. Thanks for that.
Why is it hard to change? I mean, we all know change is good, and we all theoretically are like, oh, even if it's like stop smoking, cut back on sugar, any of that sort of stuff. We know it's a good idea. We know it's good for our health. Yet we don't pull through on the change. What gets in the way? Did I see it again?
Well, for me, anytime change was, it was going to involve a certain amount of difficulty, whether it was financial difficulty or social or economic or whatever. So
what you have to do is make that decision that going through this amount of difficulty to get to where you want to be is the investment that you're ready to do. And when you decide to do it, you're ready. And it's like going through a tunnel of the occasional failure, and you just keep going, and then you come out the other end, you know, successful at having gone through all this and getting to where you want to be, whether it's a new career or having ended a relationship that wasn't going anywhere or any of those things. You decide to do that and come out the other end happier, smarter, and more successful with yourself.
Okay. Thank you. How open to change do you think people are, we are as a community?
My name's Chad. I also well, it's on. Is it on now?
Yeah.
Either way, unnecessary. But I think part of it is just listening to what everybody said, and I love these kind of think tank things. And I guess happy Indigenous Heritage Month, but there's like an Indigenous sentiment that says, you know, you never step into the same river twice because the water's always changing. So as I'm self-reflecting as you guys are talking, you know, there's some things that are extremely difficult to change with myself, obviously, but one thing that parenting has taught me is like how much you change, even though you think you're not, as you inevitably morph into your parents. But I think like, I'm just thinking through the parenting lens, because every time, you know, a YouTube ad comes on that says that one candidate or the other is plunging infants into a river of flames or whatever, they're accusing each other. Like my kids are listening, and they're watching everything I do. And when I'm sitting at our family pumpkin carving thing, and my brother-in-law is going on and on about Trump, you know, like all of the kids are sitting there watching him and watching me, and watching how we react to each other and watching how we navigate. So I think of that river analogy because it's like, I gotta be able to let the times change, you know, but I also have to, there's certain facets. I think this gets back to what Miranda's saying about the ideals that are posted up there on the screen. It's like, I gotta be able to let the times change. And I also have to remain like resolute in what I value and not let one election or one debate or one conversation like fundamentally shift my banks. I have to like take time and like slow down the work week or the holiday month or whatever it is, and try and identify those facets of my life that are important to buttress and support, and allow some of the other things to kind of morph and change with the times. So I think it's really easy to get caught up in the, like I said, the work week or the holiday month, and kind of lose yourself a little bit, which is why I love the fellowship to begin with, but also in conversations like this, because it's so important to take time to identify those things that are important as you transform. We're not 100% changing ourselves. We're pivoting our stance. We're like circling a center that we know to be true. And to me, it's kind of like, what do I want to project on my kids? What values are important, you know? And again, so I'm thankful for you, because I do align with the principles, but it's just that things always on me. I always have an audience about how I'm reacting to a political ad or a conversation or whatever. So for me, the change is more identifying like what I need to support and what I can kind of shed on the other hand.
So can I ask you a question?
Yes,
so you said that you have an audience with your children. If you didn't have kids, Would it be the same? Would it be different?
I can't even imagine that statement, partially because.
Or if you didn't have an audience, your children
also-
weren't present?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, because besides my biological kids, I also have 132, 13 and 14-year-olds in my job who are paying attention to everything I'm saying and doing.
The other teacher is nodding.
Yeah, it's like, but also, I think from being a teacher or a coach or anything, it's like the reason that you're comfortable doing these presentations, there's like, I am very comfortable with the audience at the same time, and I'm comfortable enough communicating what I value and why it won't change, which is why I don't shy away from talking about it with my students or my children, and it's why I don't struggle disagreeing with people around the campfire about the election, because part of the transformation when I think about it is like, we just cannot continue I cannot make the choice to hate my neighbor because of the yard sign that they got bamboozled into buying for $9.99 on Amazon. That choice color the full spectrum of what's going on, because I know that when I'm away on vacation and like something happens at my house, I know that they'll I know that we're letting these surface level things, because we spend a lot of time online, we let these surface level things paint the true like human dynamics of what relationships are built on. And we also lose out on a lot of stuff when we do that, because you judge at the surface level and you miss the depth of a relationship that could have been there. So I think that gets back to what I'm saying about like identifying what actually matters to me, is that using the brother-in-law example, he's a good dude at heart. He's a great uncle, he's a good father. The election paints him in different tones, but I know that 6 weeks after the election, when every conversation is about it, that he'll revert back to, the principles that I see in him reflected in his behavior and the way he treats other people and the example he sets in kids. I hope that was a roundabout way to answer the question.
Yeah.
Okay. I can project, that's fine. Hi, I'm Jess. This is my second time here, but the last time I was here, we were talking about equity, and I feel like this is a really nice segue. I'm also a teacher. I work in Allentown. I don't know how much you know about Allentown. Allentown is mostly Hispanic, mostly Dominican. My dad is Puerto Rican. We've got a lot of attention in the last couple of weeks. It's a lot. Normally nobody knows what Puerto Rico is, let alone talking about it in the national scale. And so when I think about transformation this week, I've seen a lot of community transformation. And I wanted to give a little bit of an example of like community transformation that I saw. I teach 10th graders, ESL, little 1s and 2s. And Dominicans and Puerto Ricans do not get along. They're next to each other. And culturally, very, very similar. And that's why they don't get along. And this is fine, and it's always been a fun thing, and it's never been an issue. But then, like, there were some comments made about, like the island where my dad was born being a floating island of garbage. And the next day came in, see all my Puerto Rican students wearing Puerto Rican flags. Now I don't know, the significance of that, but to see my students who are so proud of the country they're from, say today, no miss, today I'm Puerto Rican. To see my whole community galvanize around this. And my students are not particularly politically active. They spend a lot of time on TikTok, but they're not, they're not, you know what I'm saying? Like they're 16, they got other things to worry about. But to see that happen, to see my kid Walonja from the Congo borrow a Puerto Rican flag from a friend so that he could participate, that was meaningful and powerful. And I think sometimes anger can spark transformation. Righteous anger, the anger of mistreatment, the anger of injustice. It spurs us to action, it spurs us to movement. And having pride in who you are and being able to say, I deserve respect as a human. My identity is worthy of respect as a human. Most people don't know this, but the state that lost the most soldiers in the Vietnam War proportionally to their population was Puerto Rico. And one of the most decorated World War II battalions to ever serve were the Burangiers, and they were Puerto Rican. And even as we have not been considered part of the country, like mainland islanders do not have the right to vote, they certainly died for this country over and over again. And it's worthy of respect. And I've not repped that part. I was born here, I was born in New Jersey, so like, you know, but like, you know, to see my students hold up the banner and say like today, like we're all, and like the next day we were all back to the same nonsense. Like, like we're all back to the same nonsense. But for that like one moment, like we were together and it was beautiful. And I think that sometimes anger has the power, the energy, the momentum, the force to move us into change, because it's the voice telling us you deserve better.
And so what I see that the children, in their adapting to something that happened in the world, they didn't have to give up their belief that I'm Dominican and I'm proud of it. But that doesn't mean I can't adapt and support or show love or for other things. So I think that, again, as we talk about whether it's individually or as a community, as we adapt, right? We don't have to give up ourselves, like they said with the Phoenix, right? It was the option to keep what was the best, but to add on to it. So it's not just, I got to adapt and drop all of my beliefs and what I stand for and everything. It's, you know, how do I, and I've heard it a couple of times, what's not serving me or as a community, what's not serving us, right? Because if we're picking on one group of people, that what's to keep them from picking on another group of people. We need to be able to show, no, we're going to adapt, everybody's got rights and all. The other thing, and chatting back to the family thing, and I harken back, and I don't mean to call out into play, but I know that, I don't know if it's a family member or a friend that is a supporter of not who you want to vote for. And you have chosen to say, no, I still love you, I still care about you, we're just not going to talk politics, because that's what our relationship, that's adapting. Right? That's a form of adapt. It's not ignoring, because you both acknowledged, correct, that this is where we stand on opposite sides. But you're adapting to that situation, going, here's how we're going to proceed and still keep our friendship and relationship. If I'm totally off base with that, please correct me. So. All right, so I am apparently.
Hi, what you just said, sparked me to speak up. My family's on the opposite side of the fence of what I believe, as far as why we're here, you know, religious beliefs, theological beliefs, also political beliefs. So here I am, the person on the outside, but I'm still in with the family. And part of it is, we discuss to a point, and then if there's a hurtful feeling, somebody saying something that I really disagree with, or vice versa, you know, vice versa, the conversation has to stop. And some of the younger ones in our family haven't learned that yet, but hopefully the rest of the family's example will keep it there. Because we always get together, like twice a year, we usually get together as a big group. And we want it to be fun and loving. And regardless of what I believe or what they believe, we love each other. And it's interesting, you know, I also have a friend who's on the opposite side of my religious and political beliefs, and we've been friends for 30 years. And we had this
deal when it comes to politics and elections. We each have one statement and then it's done, you know, because we know we can't change each other's opinion. And religiously, you know, we just don't bother, and I'm not sure why, but we haven't. But it's harder in a way to look at people that I love and do not understand. I just can't fathom some of their beliefs. And I think they're good people, but I don't think the beliefs are good, you know, and it just is a question that I don't know that can be solved. And I think that this election and all along the, while they're campaigning, really brings up division in people, especially one person. But I feel like you have to let it go within your own sphere, because there's people standing right next to you who are saying yeah. And it depends on what that yeah is as to whether or not you speak up or let it go. It's like what arguments are important and what arguments aren't, you know? So you do have to stand up for yourself. And another Titnot comment, or whatever, how we say his name, I have it on my phone to read every day, and of course I don't know it by heart. But it's talking about the beauty within you. And you have to believe about your own beauty, you know, how you even define the term beauty. And if others don't accept it, it still doesn't mean that there's not beauty within. And I just like that, because it says it on both sides of the fence. You know, there's still beauty within somebody that I just cannot agree with on a lot of ways.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sam. Just looking at the screen up there, I was thinking about how we have this multiple changes going on here. We lost our pianist, we lost our nursery person, the RE is all kind of up. And I'm not personally involved with that, and I don't know all of the things in the background. I know that everyone's looking to fill those positions, but I truly am impressed at how the parents have stepped up and said, this is what we need to do. This is how we're going to do it. I mean, I know that Valerie looked at the UU for RE stuff to kind of get, you know, programs lined up, but that right there shows what we do as a community within the church here. That yes, it's tough, we don't like it, but this is the way we're going to do it to help support the children that come here and actually help support the adults too. And I know it's not easy. We're lucky that we have a few teachers involved in this too. So I think that's really good. And that we're, as a church, we're doing what we can to support them. I mean, I certainly have no, I mean, I'm good.
We are looking for volunteers outside. If you happen to read my columns,
I think that's, you know, the nice thing that Sarah said last week. It's not just people with children that can do this. There are other adults that can help fill in. So it's just, I think it's something really good in that we didn't like what happened. I mean, Kay steps up and plays the piano for us, and you know, we continue to step up and see what needs to be done in bigger out ways. Sometimes it's a narrow way, but adapt. But at the same time, we're doing it.
Yeah. Anne had something to say here.
Yeah, I'm Anne, and I do need this mic. Thank you very much, Linda. What I wanted to say is that there are three things. I have a lot of angst about Tuesday, and there are three things that have really helped me get through this. One is that I have been on the news fast since Trump was elected in 2016. And what I mean by that is, you know, I still read the paper, I listen to the radio, but I cannot look at any of this stuff. Okay, that's thing number one. Thing number two, and I hope I get through 2 and 3 without crying, but the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And the third thing is that I have always heard that good will always triumph over evil. It might not be when we want it to, but it will. So. Thank you.
Other thoughts on how we as a UU community can, and we spoke about, we were sort of forced to adapt, right? Ideally, we would have loved to be sitting that dumb and happy with our pianist and our RE teacher. So we were sort of forced along that way. But as we think about it, right, the world is constantly changing around us. Chester County is changing, Montgomery County is changing, right? And as we think of what at least the UUA says, what are we covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. What does that look like, do you think? And again, I don't have an answer to this. I'm actually curious into what that might mean. Valerie.
The last time when we were talking about equity, and I remember there being an emphasis on listening. I remember there being emphasis on like really listening to each other and active listening and finding out what other people need. To this point, I've learned and changed a lot in my personal beliefs just by listening to people whose experiences were different than mine. I know that before my kids were born, I didn't, and not because of my kids, just that the wrong time frame. Like 10, 15 years ago, I didn't really know much about the experience of trans people. I didn't really understand it. And I have met and had my friends transition, and I've listened to content creators on YouTube who are trans, and I've learned so much about it. And then there came a point where a lot of you guys know my son Cyrus is 10. Cyrus identifies male now, but there was a period from the time he was 3 to about 8, maybe a couple of years ago, where he identified as non-binary. He didn't have the language for that when he was 3, but he made it very clear to us that he didn't feel like a boy, didn't feel like a girl. He wore whatever he wanted, he grew his hair out, and he would get really angry at his classmates, and they would go, "Are you a boy or a girl? Like, just answer." Well, stop asking. And we were in a place where we had to explain that to his grandparents. Like, this is something we need you to understand about your grandchild. And it became this process of transformation that just sort of like cascaded throughout the family as like we were the first ones to understand and accept it. And then we had to, my parents were a little easier. My husband's parents were more conservative. But that change, because it was coming from loved ones and because they were more willing to listen, because it was something they cared about. And you shouldn't only listen to your family. Like, obviously you should be open. But that kind of active listening and getting to really know people whose experiences were different from mine and whose lives were different from mine has fueled a lot of my personal transformation and the transformation that I've been able to help other people with. And I think as a church, it's important for us to continually expose ourselves to these different life experiences so that we can inform our own spiritual growth and ethical growth.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think the important thing you said was it's based in love, right? And when you look at the petal diagram, right? So these are the UUA adopted the shared values, right? We talked equity, transformation. All of them are grounded in love. They come from a place of love. And I think you put it beautifully, that's why, right? So if you're doing it, if you're having a conversation, if it's grounded in love, right? It's coming from the right place. It may not cause a change, but at least it's not giving that angst where you're like, how can you be such an idiot and not understand that sort of thing? But if you keep your heart open, and that's the other key word that I want to make sure we don't lose sight of, which is openness, right? Again, as I had stated, change in taxes and debt, probably like the 3, change is going to happen, but we hate change. We have to be open to it, right? We have to be willing to, and that includes us as a community, whether it is the processes we do. I'm about to post something with the board sometime in the beginning of the year to say we need to be thinking about alternate structures, Because when the board was put in place 55 some years ago, it was based on people who were retired, who had a lot of free time and nothing else to do, right? The world has changed, right? We've got dual income families. We've got people working remotely, working at night, working 2 jobs. So this once a month, all of these people, is that viable? I don't know, but I want to be open to explore to say, do we need to adapt to change? And Alan, you got any final comments? You got the mic, I know.
Okay, I was trying to actively listen to, that's comment, and then, but you said something before, that you asked a question that related to collective change. Could you repeat that? Because it went out of my mind as I was actively listening.
No, I was basically trying to, again, we as a fellowship, right? So what we're covenanting to is we covenant collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. So I didn't know if that triggered as we think about a community. And I know Jess gave a great example of how a community can, cause change, but also, yes. Well, let him speak and then we'll go now.
So first of all, like everybody, most people here said, I have a division in my family. There's some people who, there are a variety of people who have completely different beliefs from mine, and it's a struggle. I mean, before the last candidate, the Republican candidate, it was very easy for me to accept that some of my relatives would vote for another different person. Let me be specific. In the Republican Party. So, I thought McCain, okay, I wasn't for McCain, but there was no big deal. My brother voted for McCain, it didn't matter. Trump made that very, that sort of changed everything. So that, one other thing related to that, and that is that one way that I try to feel good about the people around me who have different ideas than mine is to really try hard to understand why they feel that way. And I think with regard to Trump, there are people, call it his base supporters, who I will never be able, a conversation is not a good idea, but there are people in sort of closer to the center that I think I could understand them, and if I try hard to understand where their beliefs are coming from. Okay, one more thing, and that's relates to, it says we covenant, I want to try to understand what we're promising. It says we covenant, I think of covenant, to collectively transform. I'm saying that I promise to collectively transform. Now, transforming is not a value, transformation is not like a value like all the others. Kindness, and I don't think it's about kindness, but generosity and justice. I could say I'm always for that. I'm always for justice. I'm always for generosity, but I'm not always for transformation. It depends obviously on the transformation. And that's obvious. But and there are many transformations that are not good. And so now I'm covenanting to collectively transform.
I do feel like it should be adapted. So maybe that's more of a trait about this.
I mean, and the other thing is that.
Well, it's go ahead, finish.
There was, where this comes from is a debate at the UUA level. I mean, those who want to move us in a particular direction, they won that. We're moving in that direction. And there were those who were opposed to that. and thought that was a bad transformation. And sometimes people would say to me, you just are afraid of, you're afraid of change. You don't want change. You're stuck in your old ways and stuff like that. And I think the key thing is not transformation, but what the transformation is. And I think that it makes me a little uncomfortable to covenant to collective transformation as a principle.
So my interpretation of that is we have always said we are a living tradition, which means it's not like Catholicism or Judaism, which is here's a book that was written 2,000 years ago and thou shalt follow it, regardless of it making sense. I look at this again at a higher level that says the world is changing. We as individuals and as a community need to adapt. They're not defining what that adaptation is or what that transformation is. It is just keeping your eyes open, for me, keeping your eyes open, your ears open, and where do we fit in that aligns with our personal ethos and moving forward.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree with that interpretation.
All right. Diana.
We're going to be adapting because things change, fellowship changes, people change. I think the really important part is to focus on what guides our changes, what guides our transformation. Are we doing it within our ethics? Are we doing it in alignment with our principles and our values? And yes, occasionally we have to look at our principles and values to make sure that they're still, that they still serve us. But let's always keep those as a guiding principle on how we adapt to change so that we don't wind up in a place that we never intended to be just because we're adapting.
Right.
So I think that that's why documents like this, documents like the principles are so important to this fellowship and the covenant itself, to always make sure that what we're changing, when we're adapting, we're doing so within the principles, the values, the ethics that we have agreed upon. And if those need to be looked at and reevaluated, then that's the thing that we do. But we should always be adapting and transforming within those ethics.
Did you, all right, Mary, did you have, so, no. Oh, okay, fine. Final comment, or we'll be here till election time.
I just wanted to support what you just said. That's how I do it too. Like, there's no, something's gonna change in the UU. There's no Council of Nicaea that's gonna add the new book in and say, these are the books, and you go, oh, okay, why? And they go, them's the books. We're going to hell. So when I look at the transformation, I also think of it in that same way, but the thing I love about it is the same thing I love about the discussion, the same thing I loved about the discussion last week about how this building was built. It's like all hands on deck, all voices make it better, everybody's hand on a hammer makes the construction go more smoothly, and then there's not gonna be I believe transformation within our congregation unless we're lifting and we're having these types of conversations as we continue to some changes are very easy, some changes are more chrysalis moments that are challenging and painful, which Tuesday seems like it's gonna be, but just the fact that everybody's voice is involved in the congregation, that's the kind of transformation I can get behind, because I know it's not gonna be a snap change. Now everything's suddenly different. It's gonna be within the ideas that we covenant with, the beliefs that we share, and the support that we show each other within our community, even to the people who are voting different votes.
So thank you all. Great discussion. In closing, I'm going to leave you with some more words from Elizabeth Lesser. And this is a story from where she talks about the impact of 9/11 on her. As she puts it, prior to 9/11, she watched the news as if it were a sporting event, and she was an agitated and vocal fan. She had some very strong beliefs, including the election was stolen from Al Gore. The events of that day, as it did for so many of us, broke us open. The world at large and her world had changed in a very frightening and dramatic way, and was going to continue to do so in ways she could not even foretell. Yet she knew that in order for her to adapt to the new world, she would have to rise like the phoenix from the situation. Yelling at the television and politicians would no longer serve her. So this is the passage that I felt was very pertinent. 600 years before the birth of Christ, the Chinese wise man Lao Tzu counseled, in times of adversity, make energetic progress in the good. This will be the real work at hand for each one of us to meet the bad in the world with the good in our own hearts, to energetically rouse ourselves out of tired habits and worn out loyalties and replace them with bigger and broader circles of inclusion. And this is now Elizabeth Lesser referring to herself. It was time for me to let as many into the circle of family and tribe as I could. The president, the poverty-stricken people of the world hardened by years of war, and the short-sighted corporate crusaders gobbling up resources in the world, the intolerant religious fanatics clinging to simplistic answers in a mysterious universe. I need to let them in. In widening the circle, I could still hold to my convictions. What I needed to surrender was anger and judgment. What I needed to adopt was vision and humility. So with that, I'm going to ask the choir to come up and sing Wo Ya Ya. Thank you very much. Now is the time we'll turn off the video. Extinguish the chalice. If I can have a volunteer who wouldn't mind just putting that out. Thank you, Valerie. And we can all recite, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of the community or the fire of commitment. These are carrying our hearts and their hands until we are together again. And for closing words, I'm going to leave this from Anais Nin. See, I need to adapt. And the time came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Coffee time.